Hey guys, it's Doc. And today I'm going to be showing you how to run the Gold Hog as a concentrator. And I'm going to walk you through different sets. I'm going to walk you through the setup, and I'm going to show you how to basically function it, how to make it function instead of a high banker as a super concentrator. And I've got to tell you, over the past couple of weeks, I've been so impressed with this unit as a concentrator. I'm actually kind of blown away with it. So we actually have a couple of these going to commercial operations where they have large amount of cons, and that's probably the best application for it, where you've got 5 gallons to 50 gallons of concentrates coming out of a commercial operation, and they can run those through here in a matter of no time and super concentrate it down. But I did make an interesting observation the other day, and originally I had said we had been running it with 3,000 GPH total, so I've got two 1,500 bilge pumps, and I started looking at the mat, and I had to sort of go back and talk to myself and say, look, you got to listen to what you preach, and your mats need to be more active. And I started looking at the particles inside these mats, and I started to say to myself, you know what, they're just not active enough. If I'm running concentrates, if I'm running heavy material, I need to have a real high exchange rate. In other words, the mats need to be really active. So I did a test the other day, and I bumped it back up to where I used to run it to 4,000 GPH. And the mats the whole look of them changed, and that's the important part about our matting. When you run our active mattings, both the scrubber and the UR, they have to be extremely active. In other words, those particles inside need to be just dancing around, vibrating like crazy. And you shouldn't see a whole bunch of rocks in your mat. That's the other thing. We talk about that. We just shot another video about reading your mats and setting velocities. And I got to tell you, the majority of light material needs to simply pass over. And the only thing that's going to be dragging along that mat and falling into these chambers is black sand and gold, essentially. That's what you want. So I like to do a test, and when I did that test, I put some material through, I shut the machine down, and sure enough, I looked inside my UR mat in the top, and it was almost all black sand. Sure, there were a couple little stones in there, but the majority of it was black sand, and that's where I want to be. And I want that to be actively exchanging, especially if I'm running high amounts of concentrates. You run 30 gallons of concentrates through this thing, it needs to be exchanging very rapidly. So I've got my mini HD cam. I'm also going to shoot up some close-ups and bring you into this machine so you can see it. Normally when we run the Gold Hog, we run it as a high banker or dredge. This tray is a skimmer tray, and it sits all the way down here. And I'm going to show you what we do when we turn it into a super concentrator. Now you can also use this action if you're running beach sands. This is the way to run it if you're running beach sands. But you kick back this top tray and everything falls into the next tray. That's important to understand. We have nothing skimmed off here. So everything comes in and falls in. Now the nice thing about this is a super concentrator. Normally when you run concentrates, you've got to screen it down to 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch. But with this machine, you only have to screen to 1/4 of an inch. So if you're in an area that has possible larger gold or wire gold, a lot of wire gold or flat gold will get hung up or won't stay in 1/8 of an inch machines. This is a 1/4 of an inch machine. You run it through at 1/4 of an inch. If you want to double check it, run it through, screen it again at 1/8, and then run it through again. But I'm going to pass along a story to you that really shocked me the other day. And it's funny, but it's my mistake, and I learned from my mistakes. So real quickly, I've got buckets, and I'm going to grab one of them real quick. And I'm going to shoot a close-up of this in a minute. But these are numbered buckets. This is lucky number 13. And this is 55 deep material, 55 feet deep material. This is ancient riverbed. The commercial operation asked me to do some testing for them on some sample areas. And this is the deepest that they've ever dug, and it's from 55 feet down, old ancient riverbeds. How old? I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, whatever. But it's nasty material. It's a lot of clay, a lot of mica, but it's got nice river rocks in it, and it's got decent gold in it. The majority of the gold we find in here is below -50. A lot of -50, a lot of -100, and even a lot of -200. That's the material we're pulling out of this machine at 4,000 GPH, running it just like you see it. So here's my story. My story is I take one of these buckets, I run it, I have a map based on the area that we know where it's located, and I notate the results. What came out of it? What was the yield rate of that one bucket? What size was the gold? So on and so forth. Because we also have a lot of saprolite in the area, and once you hit saprolite on traditional operations, you've got to shut down your operation. It turns into slime. Actually, with our mats, we're running them, and we can actually run saprolite. If you've never seen it, it's horrible stuff. But we can actually, I ran some of their saprolite through here, and I actually found minus 100 gold in their saprolite. Saprolite is decayed bedrock. It's very light, full of mica. Turns into a slime when you run it through a normal operation. So if you're running miner's moss or carpet, it just shuts it down. There's no exchange rate. With our mats, I was able to run saprolite and pull gold out of it. So I ran one of these buckets, and it's so muddy, the water turns to chocolate milk. I can only run one bucket at a time. So I run that one bucket and I notate the results on it. I took my header box off to clean it out, and I set my header box aside over here. It was late, I was tired, we've been over at the warehouse, we were doing shipping, and I came home, and anyways, so I set it aside and I started cleaning up, and I cleaned out 1, 2, and 3 trays. I cleaned it all out. And so I actually started panning it out real slow, and the more and more I panned, I didn't find any gold. And I was like, something's wrong here. And I just bumped it up to 4,000 GPH, and I was thinking, that can't be right, because the mat looked perfect. Didn't find one single piece of gold in it. Not one. Out of all those cons, out of all these trays, I didn't find one single piece of gold. So I went inside and I was like, I'm really worried. I don't know what's going on here. I know that that bucket had some gold of it, even if it was 5 pieces of minus 100. So I went inside and we ate, and came back out, and it was late. It was like 7:30 at night, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to grab my gold cube. And I grabbed all the material that I just run out of the bucket, set up my gold cube, 3 trays, set it up perfect, cleaned it all out completely, scrubbed it, neutralized it, made sure there was no gold, ran all that material through the gold cube, cleaned all that out and panned it real carefully, not one piece of gold. So that was a relief to me. I said, well, there was no gold in here, because I didn't catch any in here and didn't catch in the gold cube, there's no gold. So I came out the next morning, and I've thought about that almost all night long. I came out the next morning, and I'm out here, had my coffee, let the dogs out for a walk, and I look over, and guess what I saw? My header box. I saw my header box sitting on the ground that I forgot to clean up. And our header box now on the concentrator it no longer skims. We covered this entire tray with UR mat, and then up under the header box we put 1/8 inch punch plate that has a little bend under and leaves a little gap. So it creates a fluid bed area. So I looked at it and I said, aha. I said, that would be amazing if I found gold and it was all in that first tray. So sure enough, right away I went, got a bucket, I cleaned out the mat, I cleaned out that fluid bed area, brought it out, started to pan it out, and guess what? I had over 40 pieces of gold that were minus 50 down to minus 200 in that range. And I just loaded with little specks of gold inside. None of that gold made it down into these trays. It all stopped right here. And that just shows you. Now that was a full 5-gallon bucket of just nasty material. The water is running chocolate brown. So it's not, concentrates are pretty clean actually, but this was just nasty material. And this new setup, not a single speck of gold got past this even first tray. I got to tell you, I have so much confidence in this machine as a super concentrator now. You know I'm not one. We don't make claims. We're not big on making claims. We very seldom will say anything close to a percentage rate. But I got to tell you, on that run, 100% of the gold was caught in this first tray. Never even made it down to the other 3 trays. So that's why this is probably one of the best machines as a super concentrator when you have a lot of concentrates. You only classify to 1/4 inch. You can run as much as you want through. If you have 20 gallons of concentrates, you put it on 4,000 GPH, blow it through the machine, you have total confidence. If you don't trust it, then go ahead, screen it down to 1/8, run it through a gold cube, run it through another concentrator, and see if you've lost anything. If you lose anything, sure, I always say 99% is a good number. So if we catch 99%, if we have 1,000 pieces of gold and a few specks get out, I'm fine with that. But this machine, after running on this setup with 4,000 GPH, full dump, I'm going to show you how it runs, how we set it up. But I have the most confidence of any machine I've ever run before in my life on this thing. And one thing you have to do is you have to learn, and including me, you have to learn about active exchange. This is a new generation of gold prospecting, gold mining. And there's even old timers. You can talk to Klondike. You go to our website, look at the customer reviews. Look at Klondike. Klondike's out in the middle of the desert, and he's pouring down over scrubber mats, and he's finding -100 and -200 gold, microscopic gold. He's running it through here on a recirculating system. A 30-year commercial miner with lots of experience swears by our mats now because he understands the science of it. And that's the important part. If you don't take the time to understand the science, how the fine tuning works, you won't get it. You'll question it. If you hear people questioning whether our mats work or not, it's because they don't know. Number one, they've never tried it. Number two, they don't understand the science. Number three, they don't understand active exchange matting versus a passive exchange matting. It's that simple. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the concentrator setup real quick. Okay, so I'm going to run you through this now. And I'm going to do some close-ups so you can see it. Hopefully you can get it. It's kind of hard for me to do this to both cameras and talk. But this is our header box. And on our header box, you're going to see that what we have now, I've actually got my dredge tube in here from last week. We were doing some dredging. But nothing in here changes except you've got your 1 1/8 inch bilge pump hoses. So you have two of those. Those shoot in here. They run down on here. Then the next thing you'll notice that they go down and they attach to, I've just got 2 bilge pumps down there, and I buy cheap bilge pumps. I never spend good money on bilge pumps. I always buy cheap on those. And I got them covered over with a brick just to keep them flat in there. The discharge port, everything discharges. Everything discharges on this setup through that one hole. Again, nothing skims out of here on that end. It all full dumps. So you've got your header box, the material runs down, runs through here, and we've got it pushed back so everything full dumps into the next tray. Nothing skims off here. Everything full dumps. Then it's going to go through all 3 trays down below. It's going to exit out into our little kiddie pool down here. I wanted to show you the new fluid bed that's under the header box that we created. And I call it a fluid bed. It's more of a quasi fluid bed. It's just that type of action where all the material turns into a fluid state. And there's all kinds of motion in there. It just dances around. Well, like I said, on that test we had, caught a ton of fine gold in here. And right under this section, you're going to see a bunch of fine black sand and material right under your header box. And then as it starts moving, you'll find more black sand down your UR mat. But I want you to look. I'm going to try and close up here. And there is that punch plate. So here's this punch plate. And this punch plate now goes, there's UR mat under it. There's UR mat under it. This punch plate sits under here and rolls down all the way down there. So now I close my header box, and this is the setup that I've got. And you can see the punch plate, how far it runs down. That punch plate runs down right about here. Ooh, good gracious, the wind. All comes in, dumps down here. I've got UR, and just so you know, I've got UR mat on this whole tray now. So on this whole tray, I've got UR mat. Then I've got scrubber, UR scrubber. We used to throw in a big face vortex every once in a while, but we don't need to do it anymore. If most of the material is not even making it down past these trays, I'm not even worried about it. I'm letting the scrubber and I'm letting the UR mat just do its job. If I'm not losing any material or I'm capturing more than 99% of the gold on my first run, I'm not putting in vortex. I'm just staying with our mats in it. So that's the basic setup. Again, your header box comes down. You've got your punch plate now under your header box on top of UR. All UR, full dump. We move this tray back. So this tray moves back and we no longer skim it. It all dumps down. Now, if you're running beach sands or if you're pre-classifying material to 1/4 of an inch, let's say you're in a pastry. Let's say you hit the mother load. I would run it like this. I'd run the machine just like this. Get it to about 4,000 GPH, screen your material down 1/4 of an inch, dump it in, and let it run through. But if this is the way I would set it up as a beach sand runner, and let me tell you what, everyone thinks you need to slow down your water flow and slow down your velocity on beach sand. Not with an active mat. I can't get that through people's heads strong enough. If you have an active mat that is actively exchanging like our mats, you want to keep it high speed. You can run tons and tons of material. You don't run it slowly. You dump it in here and let it go. Remember, if the majority of the gold that we ran is being caught in this first tray, you got 3 more trays. So dump it as fast as you can in here and feed it and feed it and feed it as fast as you can. If it doesn't get caught in this first tray, the other 3 trays are going to work it. Huge amount of surface area on this machine. You've got over 100 inches now of processing of different velocities and of different faces. The gold and material gets exposed to all kinds of different surfaces. That's another thing in this. One thing that you need to understand is because we're doing a full dump, the material dumps right down here. The velocity on the water is 0. As it starts to move, the velocity picks up and picks up and picks up. So now your material is not exposed to the same velocity the whole way down. So you have a stop, slow, medium, fast velocity dump. So it's a stop, slow, medium, fast velocity dump. Slow, medium, fast velocity. So not only are you exposing it to multiple surfaces, multiple actions, but multiple velocities in each tray. That, for some reason, is an amazing effect on catching gold, whether it's in the super concentrator mode or a high banker or a dredge mode. This machine has really, I really don't trust anything else now. I won't use any of my other high bankers. This is the only machine I use, whether I'm dredging, super concentrating, or running high bank material. Okay, so I've hooked it up, and a lot of people are going to say, well, you don't want to run 2 of these pumps on 1 battery. I actually do, and I can run them for hours and hours. The draw isn't that heavy, and that's a small little car battery too. It's a cheap, probably $50, $60 car battery. The pumps I've got there, again, I buy cheap 2000 pumps. You can get those for about 50 bucks each. 1 1/8 inch hose. I like to have more of it so I can stick it in a river if I want, or a creek. Now you're going to be able to see the flow on the header box. Now my header box splashes a lot because you'll notice that when you get yours, if you have one of these, yours are actually more closer than mine. This is an older version. And this is what I want you to see. This is what it's going to look like. The material is running down there. You can see it hit the kick plate. After it hits the kick plate, it's going to hit that 1/8 inch punch, runs down, goes down, hits all that UR mat. After the UR mat, and then full dumps, everything goes into this. And here's the nice thing about this setup. When I look at my UR mats on this, I can see the material is rapidly dancing. I shouldn't see a bunch of pebbles in there. I should see a few, but I should mainly see black sand. That's what I want to see. The 4000 GPH seems to be the perfect setting for this. And you're going to see, when you look closely at that UR mat on the top, you're going to see this violent sort of vibrating action. That's what you want to see. And here goes some 10,000-year-old river dirt from 55 feet down under the surface. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is this water's going to turn chocolate brown here in a minute. But I'm not even going to screen this. I'm just going to dump this in. I'm not going to put too much in because this water will turn real dirty real quick with this stuff. But I want you to try and see. It's going to be hard, but I want you to see this action. Now, the funny thing is, right after this punch plate, you're going to see under the punch plate it holds more material. If you can see that, because the velocity is lower in there. But as soon as that velocity picks up, that mat cleans out. That mat really cleans out. So up under that punch plate, you're going to have a bunch of little wish-washing motion under there. And again, as I'm doing this, all the material is falling full dump, going through all 3 trays, coming out the back. So let's get a little bit more. Try not to put any boulders in it. Just raw material. And this time I'm going to try and stay on the mat for you. So you can even see, even though I haven't concentrated this, the rocks just basically just fall through. So, unfortunately, you won't be able to see that because of the glare of the sun and the mud, but I am going to shut it off. But what you can see up here is you can see more. Up in here you can see that there's quite a bit of black sand up in here. Up inside, right up under this fluid bed area, under this new fluid bed area, only after a few scoops, you're going to see this real light material build up. And like I said, we find a bunch of fine gold right in here. So we'll find minus 100, 200, and even down to minus 300 up in this section right in here. Plus we'll find it all down in here. And again, a ton of our gold is actually caught right in here. If you're doing a short run, I would say probably 75% of your gold is going to be caught in this first tray. If you have any larger pickers or nuggets, they'll probably be found down in here on that next scrubber mat. But this is an amazing system to run, and what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to probably run it a little bit more, and I might even screen some material, run a little bit more, and see if I can find some gold for you. We'll see.